So, hello and welcome to this presentation, workshop, I'm not even sure anymore. So originally I was scheduled for this morning and it was a workshop in a workshop setting in a room where you could put down your laptops and everything. So my question here is like, how many of you actually came to participate in a workshop? You have a laptop and you want to do something with Vizu, just put your hands up. Okay, roughly like 20%. So I prepared in a way that I will give you an intro of what we do and what this whole thing is about. And I will show, for those of you who want to start getting your hands dirty with ipyvizzu, give you the initial steps. And for all the others, I would just show you a couple of stories that we built and talk a little bit about how animation, I think at least, can be put to good use when you're building a story. So I wanted to make it in a way that you know it serves both audiences, but I only had a very limited amount of time earlier today to prepare for this. So sorry if anything becomes unclear or you know. And feel free to ask any questions at any point in time, obviously. Okay, so I would love to get to know you a little bit better. This is the key question from our point of view. So how many of you have to regularly create and present data-heavy presentations? Hands up. Okay, what are all the others doing here? No, I'm obviously very happy to have you here. I was just like, all right. And how many of you use animated data stories for your presentations right now? You do? Okay, and there's one. What do you use for that? What do you use to create the animations?
I'm using some videos from internet.
Ah, videos.
Like them, I'm creating in the also in Blender.
Ah, Blender, and cool. You were the other one putting it. What do you use?
Just using like the animations in PowerPoint.
Ah, okay, okay, that's cool. So yeah, and you know, the thing that we built is a little more advanced than that, and its sole focus is to be able to create animated charts. There are a couple of logical follow-up questions, like why you would do such a thing, which I'm going to talk about very soon. But firstly, something about the core technology and how we're capable of creating, and how we make you capable of creating such animated charting beauties. So basically, we created a system where we use the same logic to describe and generate all different types of charts. So it's a very abstract logic, as you could imagine, but it fits all the different types of charts, and we built it into an engine that can not only create such charts, but also interpolate between the charts that are expressed on its interface. So we basically have this generic chart morpher, if you will, that can transpose from one chart to the other pretty easily. So the next logical question is like why we did such a thing. So it all serves a bigger purpose. It all serves this vision of ours that right now when people are working with data, there are these segmented steps of like, after you clean the data and it's ready for analysis, you do the analysis in a Jupyter notebook or a spreadsheet or a pivot table, and then with these sub spreadsheets or smaller data sheets that you create along the process, you try to find the fitting chart for that, and then lastly you usually put that into a PowerPoint file or try to share it with and present it to people in some other ways, and these are very distinct steps, and if you realize you made an error on the third step, you might have to go back to step number one and restart the whole process. And many like data science professionals and analysts that we spoke with told us that no matter how many slides they prepare for a client presentation, there are always follow-up questions on the spot that they haven't prepared for, and thus, you know, this whole conversation gets too lengthy and you have to go back and prepare new charts and whatnot. So we felt that if you are able to start analyzing your data that is already in a visual form, which is a lot easier for many people who have this kind of attitude towards data, and then just figure out what you want to see, looking for insights in a visual way, basically you create the presentation, the story, as a subproduct of your analysis. It is just a byproduct that seamlessly gets created, and then you can just reuse the same visuals just put some sort of live data behind it to reuse it for reporting and dashboarding. It's pretty much the same thing. And when you start fiddling with the data itself, so like I want this marker to be here, I want this column to be this high instead of being this high, then you're already in the field of forecasting and planning. So this is this visual approach to data that we have, and our vision is to build a graphical user interface for data. And we realized early enough that this is like a huge project, and I'm now leading a 10-person company back in Hungary. We are still an early stage startup. Actually, my first presentation for Pythonists was 2 years ago here in that room. So, we're gradually progressing and trying to build something really cool, but we had to focus our attention and our activities, and actually it turned out that storytelling is the use case that is like the most advanced at the moment, and basically the easiest fruit to harvest. And so we started focusing on that. So why is animation important? Why does it matter other than in storytelling and when you want to build a graphical user interface for data? So statics charts are pretty abstract. Even though these 4 charts show the same data, people, for especially less well-trained people like yourselves, it might be hard to explain what they can see on each of these charts. In many cases, when we asked data professionals, they told us that when they deliver a data-heavy presentation, they spend roughly half the time explaining what is on the chart, and then only the other half explaining why that matters. So if you are able to connect these views with the use of animation, then this sort of explanation of now we saw it with this and then we're sewing it from that angle becomes really unnecessary. This is much more intuitive. It's basically we're using different parts of our brains to understand moving elements when we're trying to decipher a chart for the first time. I have a lot of examples. I'm going to show you how it can be useful, but for now, just take it as granted that this is a useful thing. I mean, I'm absolutely biased here, but at least I think so. So a little bit about how we got to this point. Our core engine was written in C++ already some years ago. We could only use it in-house, and as of today, we're using this C++ engine. Obviously, we're constantly developing it, but we embedded it in using WebAssembly, so now it runs in the browser. And we built first a JavaScript API around this engine that is basically a JavaScript charting library. We released it open source. You can find it. It's called ipyvizzu-story, but I assume most of you are more into the Python world. And we realized early enough that in the JavaScript world there are tons of great data visualization tools, whereas in the Python world the need for storytelling is more higher and becomes more obvious, and that you are less well equipped with different data storytelling tools. So we released ipyvizzu already 2 years ago, which is a Jupyter notebook extension. It's open source as well, and you can build animated plots and data stories in computational notebooks. And then we added a little extension on it July 2022 called ipyvizzu-story that lets you build and present and share animated data stories, once again in the tools that I assume most of you are using day in and day out, so computational notebooks first. We have a ton of different integrations, so notebooks obviously, and but I think the most interesting one is the one we have with Streamlit. I'm going to show you 2 Streamlit apps that help you in many different ways to understand the scope of activities that are now available to you to do with ipyvizzu and Streamlit together. And it also, we built an app to help you on board, because as you can imagine, such an abstract library that uses a generic logic for data visualization can be a little abstract to use. That's what I learned, for example, from your counterparts from 2 years ago, that it looks nice, the charts look nice, it looks hell of a lot hard to learn how to use it. So I'm going to show you that too. And then this is the newest version. We're just working on it, actually. It's in alpha testing periods. There are like 40, 50 people in the world right now testing it with their own data, but it's going to be in open beta pretty soon. So basically it's a no-code tool that you can run in the browser. You upload your data, you select the series that you want to put on your chart, and then we just create these charts, and we give you suggestions on how you could transform your charts with the same data to different types of charts, and you're basically building a story with that, and that you can present and share right from your browser. So that's the real Vizu that we've always been planning to build. This is the first edition of that. And if you go to vizzu.io, you can sign up for the early beta, and so you'll be among the first people in the world who can get your hands on it. But so without further ado, let's get down to coding. Let me show you how our tool works in Python, okay? So there's a bit.ly link. I also created a QR code for you. It redirects you to a GitHub repo where I collected a ton of hopefully useful materials that you can use for the sake of the demos and the workshop. And you can just, if you save the link, you can continue working from there and just explore the whole thing on your own if that's what you're more into. So if you actually go to that link, you'll end up at this repo folder within Vizu Workshops with a friendly welcome message and a message that I'm going to repeat a couple of times so that you can sign up for the no-code tool, and then some useful links to start with, such as the Builder app that I mentioned that I'm going to show you, and the initial documentations and whatnots for ipyvizzu and ipyvizzu-story. Take a look at that if you will. So, but let me quickly just summarize and give you an intro of how this whole thing works. I need to zoom out initially to show you. So, the basic logic of ipyvizzu is that it uses a single method called the animate method. You can describe your chart, add data to it, describe the configuration and the styling, and if you call that animate method with the right parameters once, you get to a chart. If you call it again with different parameters, then it will automatically morph to this other chart. It's as easy as that. Obviously, there are some tricks and things to learn in the data and config bit. So yeah, let me just do it this way. Yeah. So you can install it via pip, and it works with pandas data frames. So you basically, here's a CSV file, the Titanic dataset that I'm pretty sure you're all familiar with. You create a data object, you call the addDF method of the data object and add the data frame to it. So that is that. And then you create a chart. This is an empty chart at this point. You set the width and the height, and you add the data to this chart. This is going to create an empty chart. Yeah, sorry, I need to, I guess, rerun things first because yeah, I restarted my computer. Yeah, so here you go, an empty Vizu chart. That's great. And now let's start with the animate method. So first we're going to add the count, which is the number of passengers on the x-axis, and the sex of the passengers on the y-axis, and also the count on the label. So what do you think we're going to end up with? Any suggestions, guesses?
Is it missing data?
Hmm?
Is it missing data?
No?
The pie chart.
Pie chart. Okay. No. Any other guesses? Bar plot? That was the one? Did I hear it correctly?
Yeah.
So a bar chart. Yeah, it's going to be a bar chart. With the value on the x and also on the label and the sex of the passengers on the y-axis. Easy as that. So basically, ipyvizzu automatically aggregated the count values, summed them up, and then just put it up on a chart. And in the next step, I'll just add the survived category, which shows if the passenger died or survived the crash, and also add it on the color scale. And what I'm going to end up with is a stacked bar chart. Again, the numbers stay where they were. They show what happened here, and the color has been added to show whether they died or survived. Yes.
What would happen if you would execute the same song twice? Would it change, or would it show the same?
Yeah, that's a great question. So that was one of the issues we had with this notebook integration, with this very early one, that if you rerun the cells in a different order, you might end up with different types of charts that you originally thought, because you know, there's this parameter space of the app, and you constantly update different parameters, like what is on the x-axis, and if I rerun it, then you know only the the survived, like, you know, I'll end up with a chart like this because I removed the survived from the x-axis but didn't remove it from the color channel. So it was very easy at this point to create plots that don't make sense. And that was one of the criticisms that we got. And so another thing, just to show, and this is really just the intro part, and I can tell you it has become somewhat easier to use it. It's just, I'm just trying to show you the ropes for now. So next up is I'm going to remove the survived from the yeah, it's not, sorry, it's, yeah, this is how it should look like. So I remove it from the x-axis and add it to the y-axis, meaning I'm going to just group my plot like this. And again, all the transitions are automatically animated. There are a ton of other things you can do here. So I can change the geometry to circle, for example, and then I end up with circular markers. With circular markers, I can add size. Once again, I added the same value count. And then I can turn the coordinate system to polar, which will result in a chart that doesn't make sense at all. So it fits all the necessary requirements of a plot, but still nobody uses it because it's so hard to understand what's on it. And then you have the filtering bit. Maybe I'm just going to, yeah. So I'm going to turn it back. You can also add the filtering, filter the plots to include only data from passengers that traveled on first class. And you have a lot of styling options, as I said, so you can change the color palette, for example, to red and green, like this. I know it's, so this is some of the configuration options that are there. If you go to the folder, there are actually in the notebooks folder, there are a lot of these introductory notebooks with a ton of examples that gradually introduce how this whole thing works. And also, if you go on our documentation site, you have a step-by-step intro with there as well. So the story bit that we released, the ipyvizzu-story, is a little different, meaning that you have slides and steps, but it basically uses the same logic. So you can just create, like, yeah, I'm going to just speed things up here, okay? So again, we're using a data frame, and I'm going to set the styling here, and let me just really quickly run up all the cells, and so I can really just show you what you can build this with, because the promise here is that now you don't have to understand all of this, at least not at the very beginning, okay? So you can build something like this with ipyvizzu-story. So a data story that runs in the notebook, but you can also export it as an HTML file. This one shows how much money the federal government in the US spent on things they call R&D. This is a stacked area chart, but you can simply just split it up and show the trends side by side. Or you can, with the zooming bit, so the filtering thing, it enables you to, and this is a storytelling trick I use all the time. So there's actually one more category that the federal government considers R&D, which is defense. So how much money they spent on the military. And we can just add it once the audience is familiar with the original plot and have this effect of like, okay, and there's a lot more money that they spent on the army. So, and then you can switch from values to percentages, and obviously it will be easy for the audience to follow along. Or you can zoom in to certain parts, like the first and the last bit, and then rearrange the chart in a way that it becomes clear how the different components changed over time, how much money they spent on it originally and how much they do now. I'm sorry the texting is a little small, but you can just use, for example, yeah, because I zoomed out too much. So yeah, this way it's going to be, I guess, a lot better. Yeah, so this is where we were. Okay, so this is the kind of story that you can build with ipyvizzu-story. Now the tricky thing is, and now I'm going to just go to the online version because I didn't have time to set up once again my locally running Streamlit app. In just a sec, I'm going to try and yeah, set this up as well online. It's going to be slower, so that's why I was hoping to be able to run it locally. So this is the app that we created for you that helps you start using our tools, and I would like those of you who wanted to use this as an opportunity as a workshop to pay extra attention, because this is how you can get started with ipyvizzu, the builder app, vizzu-builder.streamlit.app. So you can, for step one, you upload your data, or you can use sample data by this using this toggle. Step two, you need to configure your data. With the sample data, you don't need to do that. With all other data, it's basically, you have to say if we misinterpreted a value, category, and thought it's a value. So for example, in year, there are only numbers, so we automatically would assume that that's a value, and then you can tell here that it's a category, and that's about it. And then here's the meaningful bit, is to configure your charts. So you can basically just select a number of categories and the values that you want to put on your chart, and then what you want on your label, what kind of aggregation logic you want to use for values, whatnot, and then hit create charts, and that's when the magic happens. But it's a slow kind of magic, so you have to wait for the big reveal, especially when you're running it online. So you created a ton of different ipyvizzu charts. You see, you have, I don't know, 15, 20 of them, just in this one app. These are all very well-known chart types, obviously. And what you can do with the generated charts is you can add them to a story. So I'm going to just click on a couple of these, and I'll show you what happened in the background pretty soon. But you can also just check out the code that we use to generate these charts. So whenever you want to get started with Vizzu, you don't have to understand our quirky logic and start building your code together, but you can generate the charts, pick the ones that you like, and then copy and paste this code to your notebook or your Python environment, your VS Code, whatever, and then start fiddling with that from that point on. It's even more verbose, this code, than it needs to be, because it includes all the different options to avoid especially the issue that you just mentioned, so that it is easier from going from one chart to the other, and you get the same chart whenever you rerun this code bit that you have there. So this is one way you can start using Vizzu, and in the meantime, so I clicked on Add Chart to Story, and here is my data story with 3 slides. This was the first slide that I clicked on to add to the story. This is the second one. I just rearranged it a little bit, and then this is the third one. And as you can see, again, we do the transitions automagically. And you also have the option here to delete the last slide, so you can basically build a story here step by step. But you have to do a lot of clicking, that's for sure. You can download the story as an interactive HTML file that you can attach to your email, or just use it anywhere you want. And you also have the code for the whole story. So you have here the slides and the steps that were in ipyvizzu-story. Again, just copy and paste it to your own environment, and you'll be able to use it from that point on. Is it clear what I'm trying to tell you here?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Do you have any questions about the Builder app, or about the generic engine, or about why we do this? What is here?
Where's the AI?
What?
The AI.
Where's the AI? Yeah, that's a great question. It's obviously in there. It just hid itself so well that we haven't been able to locate it. No, like for the no-code tool, we will have, we already have an early integration. Actually, we had it a year ago with ChatGPT, where you added a data set and you asked it to generate some charts, and it spat back Vizzu code, so it basically started to create charts. It was just a very early implementation, but with the no-code tool, we definitely want to give you and the users these kind of opportunities, so that you upload your data, we analyze it in the background, and once you enter that editing mode that I showed you the video of, you already have a couple of slides, so basically a suggestion for a story that you can just go and present. And obviously you can tinker with it, you can add or remove slides, but there's something to start with, not just an empty canvas. But we have like a list of 6-7 ideas, for example, titling the charts, finding the right color palettes, for example, when there are bananas and pears and oranges, then just add the fitting color for those in the legend, and a couple of other ideas. Actually, generative AI can be a great way to speed things up when people try to build these animated data stories that Vizzu makes them possible to do.
No, in all the honesty, I think this is amazing, having that kind of builder generate the code that you can tinker with and
Thank you. For those of you who haven't heard it, he likes the Builder app.
I do, and I was going to ask, do you guys have like, or are planning to have like a VS Code extension? It's super awesome to sort of do these things and have the code right into it.
Yeah, so VS Code extension of the Builder app, or no, so like something like that.
Yeah.
Well, honestly, we are super busy building the no-code tool. These are all open source things, so if you are up to build, we have a VS Code extension, by the way, that is for housekeeping purposes. So if you go and look for CodeViz, you can actually just run it on your code and it will show you how many lines of code and how many files you have in different folders on what languages, and it's an interactive visualization. But so we have some experience with that, but we have that, and that is a great idea. I just can't promise we will have the resources in the next couple of months because yeah, as an early stage startup, we made the error, or like we chose the path of raising venture funding. It's not an error. It's the natural way of moving forward, obviously, in this industry. And that means that we need to really focus on the parts of the product that can start generating revenue at a certain point. I have strong belief in keeping the open source tools and further developing them, but adding more to the stack is just extremely hard right now because we're under so much pressure with the no-code tool. I mean, I think this kind of natural transition and the capability that you, as people who can use our open source tools, would still get with the no-code tool, and with something like the Builder app, so that you can, make bespoke, very special, nice visualizations, or you can plug in live data and things like that. That would still keep that kind of advantage on your side compared to the mostly business people user group who would use the no-code tool. That it's like a natural I believe these two things can complement one another very well. Another question.
What about the data format? What you should to upload? It should be filed in the what programming language, in what format?
So right now you can upload a CSV. I think with the use of pandas you can also use TSV because it's capable. So it's a pandas data frame in the Python environment. Yeah, the no-code tool initially will have the opportunity to upload CSV files, but one of our developers just took on the task for the weekend to add an Excel input feature, for example. And later on, obviously, live data sources will come as well. So that's what we have for now. And I strongly suggest you to use it with data that's first order normalized, whatever that means. Because I think that because that's how we can do all the cool transitions. If you have, for example, sales data, but each month is in a different column, we might have issues figuring out and building plots with that. So you want a month column and then the values if you want to use it with Vizu. So I think for those of you who want to get your hands dirty with Vizu, just go to the data folder within the GitHub folder that I shared with you. There are a couple of sample data sets that you can start using right away with the Builder app and with Vizu. This is the R&D data set. There's something about how much revenue different music formats generated in the US over time. This is a mock sales data set. This is the number of times people swear or die in Tarantino movies. This is the Titanic data set. This is something about the world population in different regions and how it was and how the UN forecasts it to be in the future. You can make meaningful data stories with all of those. And so and if you have any questions, so those of you who are willing to start using Vizu, just put your hands up and I'll be happy to help. For everybody else, I thought I would show you another Streamlit app. I still have like 15 minutes. That's great for an intro to the Builder app, by the way. But you can do it obviously later on. So I would be happy to give you a glimpse of another Streamlit app that builds and introduces new use cases. I will want to make a photo with you towards the very end and give you a couple of stickers, and also show you some stories that I built, so that to give you a couple of examples of how I think animation can become handy. I thought that would be useful for you. But we can go Q&A, or if you have any other suggestions, I'm open to all of those as well. Yeah?
Can you download the story as like a video format?
That's a great suggestion. So downloading the story as video. It's on the roadmap. Not right now. Actually, with Streamlit, they have a built-in screen recorder, so you can just record the screencast right from your browser if you're using the Builder app or any other Streamlit apps. And obviously, there are other ways you can do this. And this will be important, and I guess PPT export is my favorite term, but our developers start to hate me for that, so I'm only allowed to mention it when they're not around. More questions? Okay.
There are some in Discord already.
Come again?
In Discord, there are some questions already. So
Discord.
Discord. Oh, yeah, sorry. That's a rather strange way. Yeah, I'm pulling it up. I'm almost there. Okay. Yeah, so... Okay. Can Vizu be used in monitoring? Can chart data be updated on the go? Yes. You can. You still have, so like with Streamlit, you have these kind of connectors, how you can just connect live data to it. You have to just rerun the chart basically, and Vizu will know that, for example, these are usually time series, like line charts and things like that happen over time. And Vizu will just make sure that they appear on the right side of the chart. So it's going to be because they become last in the data frame, and so it's going to be a constantly moving, sort of like a racing chart. We plugged it into real-time data many occasions. So yeah, what is Vizu's value against BI tools such as Tableau, where we already have polished no-code visualization? Yeah, so that's a great question. We think that, so I don't know how many of you are considered as Tableau experts. Actually, what I hear from people who tried or actually did learn Tableau is that it's a rather painful experience, and we believe, or we hope, that we can build such an intuitive interface that it will be easier for you to use without having to take a pilot's exam. Also, this focus on data storytelling and the animation capability comes in handy. So Tableau is working hard to catch up, but because they built their initial technology on a very different logic, basically having different algorithms behind different types of charts, they would never be able to get this kind of seamless transitions that we were able to deliver from the get-go. I don't know how many times you tried to change something in a Tableau chart and end up like, okay, so what the heck just happened? Undo, undo, undo. So there are in a lot of cases when you pick a chart type, you end up with something that you really don't know what happened. And with these animated transitions, this is the kind of pain or friction that we want to take out. But obviously they are a great company, and there's a lot to learn from them, and we're very far from repeating their success. So luckily they are now focusing only on enterprise clients, or mostly on enterprise clients, so we can have a grab at people who are working for smaller companies maybe. How should look file with data we uploading start? Yeah, so format, data format and everything, we talked about that. Yes?
Data security. Let's say I would like to try the tool, but I am afraid, not comfortable to put company's data. So how
yeah, me too.
And how you are with that?
No, we're working hard on that. Right now, so don't upload anything that you feel uncomfortable with. Actually, in these Streamlit apps, these are all temporary things, so we don't even access this kind of data. And Streamlit also just deletes it from the cache. So it's basically there for your user session. And everything happens on the front end. So the whole of Vizu runs in the browser, actually. So we don't even, we never see your data. But obviously, you have to take my word for it at this point. The other issue we have is that in order for the animations to work seamlessly, whenever you download an ipyvizzu-story, we just embed the whole data set in that HTML file, not only the data that is used for the animations. We're working as well on that to simplify the data and to only include the bits that are actually shown on the chart, but that was the easier way to go forward for now. So yeah, I mean, if you're working on such a field, use some mock data, or you can actually run all these things, the Streamlit apps, for example, on local. meaning that really no data leaves your computer. So that can be a way around that. But I'm pretty sure ITsec people would still freak out at certain points, even though we never get access to your data. Yeah?
What is the data limit? How many, for example, rows can I?
Yeah, it's not about the rows as of this point. It's more like how many categories you put on your chart. I wouldn't say it's very robust at this point. We're working hard to make it better. I've been building stories with a couple of tens of thousands of rows, and, for example, and it worked quite well. But it's not ready for big data yet, and there can be some issues. So I would suggest you to experiment with it with smaller data sets, even though the original promise is that you can upload or use your data in its full resolution, and we're working towards that, and the C++ engine is actually, and WebAssembly and later on OpenGL provides us with great promises in that regard, so that we will be able to handle big data sets, but it's down the line.